been looking for abductions all night.
Who are those two humans?
That's Betty and Barney Rubble.
Dumbass, you're thinking of Betty and Barney Hill.
Already abducted. Does he remind you of Travis Scott?
Dumbass, you're thinking of Travis Walton.
Already abducted. I'm starving. When are we going to stop for something to eat later? The scanner relays came back. That's Chris and Kristen from Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Which one is Bigfoot? Which one is the bunny?
Dumbass.
Oh my god, you're such a dumbass. Such a dumbass. Such a dumbass. Such a dumbass.
Where is the church?
Perspective on the meaning of Thanksgiving, and we're not talking turkey.
Gobble, 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 gobble.
You know what my shirt says?
Tonight on Bigfoot and the Bunny, how could a place so beautiful, so serene, hold such a dark secret? Meet Toby.
Toby, how old are you?
How old are you?
Wait, my face, how did that happen? Wait, my face, how did that happen? Wait, my face, how did that happen?
Welcome to Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I am Kristen Johnson.
And we're having some CME issues.
Yes, we are.
Things are getting all wonky right out of the gates. Gotta love it.
Gotta
love it. Kristen's computer's on fire. And the intro, I kind of hacked the first time. There was no sound for no reason at all. Gotta love it. That's how it goes.
I don't know what happened. It just like... Poof.
Yeah, it was working.
It
was working good.
Yeah.
Hello, folks.
Hello.
Hello, Emery Young, Carol Garcia, Bob Brunel, Bellissima. Sorry. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
How are you? How are you guys doing tonight? We have a great show for you guys. We're really excited. There was an EVP. I don't know if you caught it, that I've been trying to get on our soundboard for like, I don't know, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it hasn't worked out either. And hello, Christine Furlet. Riza, how are you? And it hadn't worked out, but it's in that video that we just played. And it says Chris.
It does.
Right over the two of us talking.
Something always happens when you're least expecting it,
Yeah.
You're talking, doing something, and that's when they decide to talk.
Didn't hear that till after the fact. And that's quite clear. That's a good one. And we'll probably revisit that on another show. But I do want to tell you guys about our guest, because we're going to talk about some moon mysteries. And we love moon mysteries. Mm-hmm. We love the moon. The moon is not fully explained to us. And I think you're going to appreciate the conversation. Her name is Constance Victoria Briggs. And she is an author, researcher, and public speaker specializing in the cosmic mysteries, including Galactic and Moon Mysteries, Ancient Astronauts, Extraterrestrials, Angels, and the Unseen World. She's the author of many books, including the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries, Secrets, Conspiracy Theories, Anomalies, Extraterrestrials, and More. The Moon's Galactic History, a look at the Moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth. An Encyclopedia of God, A to Z guide and thoughts, ideas, and beliefs about God. The Encyclopedia of the Unseen World. The Ultimate Guide to Apparitions, Deathbed Visions, Mediums, Shadow People.
Yikes.
Yeah, we have to talk about that as well.
No, please.
Wandering Spirits and much, much more. An Encyclopedia of Angels, as well as Earth's galactic history. So let's bring Constance on right now. Hello, hello.
Welcome.
Hi,
Welcome
guys.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm fine. Thank you guys for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure is all ours. And we really appreciate your patience while we work through our technical difficulties. It's kind of the norm with the live show thing. And we know you've done a lot of shows, so I'm sure you've seen it all before. We certainly have.
Yes.
We've had all kinds of things go on. You'd think the extraterrestrials were here, and sometimes we think they are.
In our feed as well, in the interwebs.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. This is super interesting. We love the moon stuff. We've read Ingo Swann's Penetration book. You're probably familiar with Ingo Swann, the remote viewer.
Yes, I'm familiar with Ingo Swann.
He saw all kinds of stuff on the moon when he remote viewed it, and he's considered as kind of like the godfather of remote viewing, really. And he saw all kinds of mining equipment up there and stuff, and
metal munching moon mice.
The metal munching moon mice. And we're fans, so tell us what you know about the moon.
Well, first of all, regarding Ingo, just on a side note, I don't know if you're aware that he did a remote viewing of Jupiter. Do you know this story? So he, I don't want to get stuck on Jupiter and go too long, but he remote viewed Jupiter and saw the rings. Saw a ring, an asteroid ring around Jupiter. And so for people, not familiar with remote viewing or that may not believe in such a thing, so they may not take Ingo's story about the moon, which I'll get into in a little bit. Seriously, I'd like to preface this by saying he discovered a ring around Jupiter before our scientists knew it was there.
That's right. Simultaneously, we had a space probe on the way to Jupiter, and he found out there was an ice ring there before the space probe could see it.
Right.
Back in the day. And he was amazing.
He was the number one remote viewer during his time. But so I think that gives him a lot of credibility for, believing what he saw on the moon. He saw people, he saw factories, he saw looked like they were making lasers, or they had lasers, buildings, work going on, mining equipment. So, I mean, that's really something, because he's got that credibility of discovering something before our scientists did. So I would take him seriously. With that said, what he found on the moon, or what he saw on the moon. Oh, by the way, there's a side note. He got nervous while remote viewing. He believed that his presence was being felt up there by lunar inhabitants, and they, he said, follow him back. Now, apparently, whoever is up there that he saw has some sort of psychic abilities. They were able to feel his presence and come back to Earth, and scared him enough that he went and hid. Now, did they come back literally or figuratively? I guess it's figuratively. I don't know a lot about remote viewing, but those lunar people, whoever they were, scared the heck out of Ingo Swann. Okay. But with that said, in all seriousness, it appears that there is someone on the moon. It could be, humanoids, as Ingo had described, or another. Well, they could all be humanoids, but these that he described look very human. I'm trying to
Right.
say that there may be more than one kind of race of beings on the moon.
I think he thought they were following him. And I remember in the book, he was in a grocery store and he saw this very tall, very attractive woman, blonde, and just
Nordic.
like typical, yeah, like a Nord. And exactly. And she was an alien. And there was some government things. It was like he got too close to the truth,
He
that
got
kind of
too-
thing. But he had
And
so many serious things in his resume that you can't just discount him as just
can't
some moon.
discount them. So
You know,
anyway, penetration. That's the short name of the book. Anyway, yeah. So what are your questions? I don't know where to start.
Well, we always ask our guests, our first question usually is, did you ever have a haunted childhood? Did you have a haunted experience growing up?
Or maybe aliens or cryptids or
Right.
any kind of paranormal phenomena occur in your childhood.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question because it's something I haven't talked about a lot, and it's something that I'm just beginning to talk about. My mother's family is known to have had some paranormal presences and activities around them. I didn't get the bulk of anything scary or negative, but I did begin to have experiences in my 20s. That's when most of my stuff kicked in. So I have had, I have to say, there was one biggie when I was 9 years old that I did not know until the last few years. I figured it out that what I saw was a UFO. All right. So I was studying the moon, and I was a lot of information comes across my desk, and I was reading about a woman who had seen a UFO, and she wasn't quite sure what it was, and she said this thing was hovering. It was circular and it was hovering, and it couldn't, and I was thinking, reading it, oh, it couldn't have been a plane or a helicopter. They don't hover. And then I went, oh. When I was 9 years old, I was riding in the car with my mom on the way to the drugstore. I'll never forget it. And it was at night. It was dark, and my mom was a very sort of a nervous driver. She never wanted us to talk or make noise. So I was in the back seat. I can't remember if my sister was there or not, but I was sitting on the right-hand side going over this little valley area in Alexandria, and there was something in the sky, and it had lights that were several color lights, sort of, in a circle going, just, I don't know what the description, revolving lights, maybe different colors. And I remember we were driving and I was looking at that thing, and I remember specifically thinking, I wonder if that's one of those things. Now, my parents didn't discuss UFOs. The best word I had in my head was thing. And I watched it and I never said anything. And we drove past it and it was just hovering. It was hovering.
Oh,
So weird.
And it was something I thought about on and off throughout the years. And then I forgot about it until I started writing the Moon book and reading about this lady's experience. And I thought, oh, that was a UFO.
yeah, that's what it sounds like. And it's an interesting statistic for us. Almost all our guests, people who take this kind of phenomena seriously as adults, usually had some sort of experience as a child. It's almost like you want to answer those questions. Like, was that real? Did I really see that? We've all had things in our childhood that were just bananas. And
oh, really?
oh yeah. And so have most of our guests. Almost not everyone. There's been a couple exceptions to the rule. Lloyd Auerbach was one of them.
Yeah.
Very, respectable guy. Obviously knows his paranormal stuff. Didn't have a haunted childhood, but almost everybody has had some sort of experience, and we find that pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I've had quite a bit in my adulthood, but that's another show, I guess, huh? I don't know if you want to.
Yeah.
We'll spill the whole hour talking about
a lot of experiencers, have a lifetime of phenomena, of seeing orbs and that sort of thing, colored lights in their house and stuff. Has that kind of thing happened to you now?
So I've seen, the orbs. I haven't seen orbs directly, but I've seen orbs in pictures of my daughter's birthday party. I was, it was filled with these rather large white orbs that looked like cauliflower. It was so interesting. I'm like, what the heck? And I don't see them in the house with my, natural eyes, but they're in the pictures. But I have had experiences with my parents that have both crossed over, and they've come back. And my mother still, I mean, she passed in 2019, and she's around turning on lights and turning on the TV. And I know it's her letting me know she's there. And usually when I'm thinking about her or I'm feeling a little sad, something will happen on the day, for example, of her anniversary of her passing. The light in the lamp in my room was going on and off. And then I looked at my husband and I said, it could be mom. Let me know. I had to get up and go to another room. Let me know if the light turns off. And it went boom, off.
Wow.
When my father passed, I mean, that's just one example. I could go on, but she also left me a note. She left me a note, and we call that, I believe that's called an apport, right?
Hmm. So
APPORT.
materializes. Yeah.
Yeah, thing. I was when she after she passed, my brother and I was in her where we were in Alexandria cleaning out her apartment, and we were in a restaurant, and I went into the ladies' room, and I was really upset. And there was a note on the counter that said, well, actually, it wasn't on the counter. I'm being nice. I didn't want to say. I'll just go ahead and say it was in the stall, the bathroom stall that I walked into. There was a note under the flusher, and it said, "The soul is forever." Smiley face.
Wow.
Wow.
It was a little note. I swear.
Post it.
Yeah,
Signs.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a little piece of square white paper, but and there was a little smiley face, just the way she used to draw them. There are different ways to make smiley faces. She had her own unique way, and it's been really interesting. But my dad, um, who had been trying to get my attention. And I realized it a little too late. So what he did is in San Diego, we were having a power problem, outages, because it was hot. They were shutting off. We had to shut off our power to keep the electricity down, whatever, to keep the cost down and all this stuff. So anyway, I went in. So the house was dark. I went to the living room, turned on my lamp that was on a table, a regular table lamp, went into my family room, sat down with my toddler, and the lamp went out. Now, when you turn on a light will blow when it's old. You turn on the flip and it just booms, right? This was just something weird. I turned it on, I went and sat down, and then all of a sudden it just went out. And I went to investigate because, I know about these things, and I went to investigate. Couldn't turn it on, couldn't figure out what happened until I traced the cord uh, to the outlet, and it was yanked out. My father had yanked that cord to the light, to the lamp out of the wall to get my attention.
Yeah.
Wow.
That stuff
Well,
happens. It seems to be more common than you think. We
Lots of
have
stuff.
had our
Yeah.
own experiences with the passing of our parents, as well as not all of them, obviously.
Yeah.
It as well as like I investigated a house. Remember that house we went to
Yeah.
where the radio, that
Bruce
was the
Springsteen.
father's favorite radio. Yeah, it would play songs in things, and it wasn't even plugged in. There were times when
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
worked, and that family was pretty bugged out
And
about
you could
that.
feel that energy when you walked into that house. It was a new,
Yeah,
just very light but powerful energy throughout the entire house.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
interesting
Cool.
case. Yeah, so that kind of thing is definitely real, and we just accept that. Their spirits are real, and all of
Yeah.
that. Paranormal
It,
is
it,
real. It does
it's
happen.
something it's something to not be afraid of. I wanted to tell you a real quick story because it's just so interesting.
Sure.
When my sister was passing, my dad eventually he would turn on lights and stuff like my mom, but eventually he sort of settled on the VCR, changing the time on the VCR. And I knew it was him. I started to call it his MO when he wanted to let me know he was around. So when my sister was passing, she passed slowly. The VCR time, the clock was spinning. It was spinning. It was
Yeah.
first ahead 3 hours to her time, which was the East Coast. I'm on the West. And then it was spinning, and then she passed. The
Oh,
time
geez.
was just turning. Yeah. That's my best story.
It's a
I
good
love it.
story.
Great story.
That's a good story. But
Yeah.
let's circle back to the big circle in the sky called the moon.
Yes.
The moon
Yes.
has
Okay.
such a big impact on people when there's a full moon. Crime rates go up. Everybody knows this. Some people like to dance under the moon, like we do. We dance under the full moon, the new moon. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But
Dark
That's
moon.
nice.
it seems to have an effect on people. It's very strong. We've heard stories that the
Presence.
soil samples they get from the moon, it's much older than the
Us,
Earth,
yeah.
right? And they got new theories and hypotheses as to what the moon actually is. What do you think it is? I mean, what do you think's going on up there?
Yeah. So basically, I wrote the book, The Moon's Galactic History, because I decided that the story of the moon needed to be told. The people and I wrote the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries also because people need to know this information and come to their own decision. I personally believe that the moon is not real. It's not a true natural satellite. And this is a theory that has been going around now for quite a few years because it really is just too strange to be a natural satellite. It's too big, according to Isaac Asimov. There's a famous quote where he said, "Oh, and I'll read it to you. It's one of my favorite quotes, guys." American author Isaac Asimov once stated, "What in blazes is our moon doing way out there? It's too far out to be a true satellite of Earth. It's too big to have been captured by the Earth. The chances of such a capture having affected and the moon having then taken up a nearly circular orbit about the Earth are too small to make it such an eventuality credible. But then, if the moon is neither a true satellite of the Earth nor a captured one, what is it? What is it? Excuse me.
And what do
That's
you
some,
think?
that's something that our scientists haven't been able to answer. They've come
Right.
up with several theories. The one that I grew up thinking is that it was captured in Earth's gravity, but that was discounted because it really is just too big. And then there was the what we call the impact theory, or they also call it the Big Whack theory, where a planet the size of Mars is believed to have smacked into Earth and caused Earth's material to spew out into space, eventually forming the moon. That has been discounted. But NASA on their website said, they think that's how it happened, but they can't commit to it because, they don't know definitively. So they really don't have a definitive answer as to where it came from. But what's interesting is, there are a few things going on here. If you, oh gosh, I don't know where to start. So if you look at some of the information that came back from the astronauts, and I know there's people out there who don't believe they went, but I do. If you look at the material that they brought back, it's made of these elements that are very, very tough and very hard. And the scientists have said, at least two Russian scientists said that what the moon is made up of on the surface looks like material that would be used to create a hard shell and to build some kind of structure. Now, we know that the astronauts tried to drill into it and they couldn't. These Russian scientists also, after they looked at everything that the astronauts brought back and all the detail, they also said that the craters no matter how hard the moon was hit, how heavy a meteor was that hit the moon, the craters are all still around the same size, which is about 2 to 2.5 miles. And that, of course, should not be the case. So they looked at some of these details, these scientists, and they brought forth a theory that really put their reputations on the line. And that theory is that our moon is some kind of spaceship. That was the word they used. I mean, people can use the word megastructure today, or they can say spaceship. And they said that they believe this thing was brought across the universe. And I'm going to read you what the scientists said, because this theory has really taken hold as to what our moon might be. These two said it is more likely that what we have here is a very ancient spaceship, the interior of which was filled with fuel for the engines, materials. Excuse me, may I start again?
Sure.
It is more likely that what we have here is a very ancient spaceship, the interior of which was filled with fuel for the engines, materials and appliances for repair work, navigation instruments, observation equipment, and all manner of machinery. In other words, everything necessary to enable it to serve as a Noah's Ark of intelligence, perhaps even as a home of a whole civilization with a prolonged, perhaps thousands of millions of years existence and long wanderings through space. That's what these two scientists came up with. They basically think that it's a spaceship that is inhabited and that was sent on a trip across the universe and stopped or was placed in Earth's vicinity. Um,
Oops. Yeah, it's too perfect in the way that it orbits the Earth, right? It makes almost a perfect circle around the Earth. It may have been exactly perfect at some time. And while that sounds like, oh, that's how moons work, it's not. The other moons in our solar system, of which there are many, many moons and some of these planets,
Some of these planets are a lot.
and they're all like elliptical orbits. But ours is the only one that is like perfectly circular. And wasn't there something about the Apollo 12?
Yeah, the Apollo 11. You had said in your book, I think it's the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries, Secrets, Conspiracy Theories, Anomalies, Extraterrestrials, and More.
you have it.
The bell sound, right? We're gonna
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, since we're here. Yes,
that book.
That book. You write about the Apollo 11, I think, this mission, and you talk
Yes.
about the Buzz Aldrin and Mr. Collins. And could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
One of my favorite stories, moon stories, and there are many, is the Apollo astronauts of Apollo 11. So basically, Apollo 11 was the first mission to land men on the moon. And by the way, people, there were many. There are people that think that's the only one, and they refer to it, but there were many. There were 12 men that walked on the moon. But when they went, first of all, as they were flying in, they had seen a UFO on the way. Buzz Aldrin talked about this in his first biography. This thing was shaped like the letter L, and it was very bright and shiny, and he said, illuminated, and it was following them. And they weren't sure what to do about it. They weren't sure if they should contact ground control and let them know that there was a UFO following them. So what they did was they asked ground control, where is the Saturn V? And they said, it's several thousand miles away from you. So they knew it wasn't that, and so that something was following them. So when they are nearing the moon, according to one story, there was a journalist who talked to Neil Armstrong's best friend. And I don't think that many people have heard this story, but she interviewed him. Her name is Linda Moulton Howe. She's just fabulous.
Oh
She
yeah.
interviewed she interviewed Neil Armstrong's best friend, and among other things, he stated that Armstrong told him when they were flying in um, with the lunar module, they had to make a sharp turn. I think people do know that they did had to make some kind of turn, and the reason they had to turn the limb, he said, was because there were ships sitting on the crater, and they, didn't want the audience at home to see them. So, there was a little bit of a commotion, and then they landed. Now they had to come out, and I believe that they came out because I think that they had suspected, or that NASA knew all along that there was something going on up there, because they had uh, commissioned some um, a book, a classified document that I have here that is now declassified. They commissioned this work, and this work is titled the NASA Lunar Technical Report. You can just get this thing off of Amazon, and it goes back to the time that the telescope was just made, with prominent astronomers putting their findings down in writing, and they compiled it in here. So from that time to the 60s, they had this book telling them that they had seen strange lights and all kinds of things going on up there. So I think they kind of knew. I think the astronauts. Sorry.
A lot of green lights, and it was a ton of money going into the space race right through the 60s leading up to us actually landing on the moon. They had sent up all kinds of satellites. They were taking millions of pictures, and of which they manipulate, and everybody kind of knows that if you're into this stuff, if the picture's too good, it disappears off the NASA site. So
Oh God, so many of them disappeared. I talk about that in the Moon Mysteries book too. But I think if I were the astronauts and I had flown in and I had seen ships on the crater, would I have come out? I don't think so, but but they did, and I think that they suspected that there could be a possibility of seeing something. Oh, Lavetta, thank you. That's so nice. I see the comment. Anyway, so they get out of the lunar module. They come down, and Neil Armstrong makes his little speech, one giant step and all of this stuff. But they're off for a little while, for what was it, 2 minutes? 2 minutes. That's a long time to say something on a secret line, saying, "Listen, listen, ground control," and they weren't as calm as I am. There's ships lined up on the edge of the crater. They're sitting there looking at us, and they're big. These things are big, and we don't know what to do. And you can hear now. I have transcripts in the book where that came straight from NASA, where you can tell that they were nervous, and there's and ground control is saying, "Come again, come again. What are you saying? What is that? What is that?" And they saw this, all right. And then they went about their work. There's one rumor that those ships left. It's very interesting. So I have two sources here. One was a Mr. Christopher Kraft, who worked with the astronauts. He is known as the father of ground control, of mission control. So he knew a thing or two, all right? And he was highly respected. When he left, he said that this happened. I have the transcript of what he said, that this was true. They did see the ships. And if you can't believe the guy who's called the father of mission control, or grandfather, whatever they call him, who can you believe, right? And then there was another man named Maurice Ewing, I think the last name is Ewing, who wrote a book. And what was interesting about this is that he said there were space agencies who were monitoring this whole thing, and that one of the space agencies somebody there said, it looked like the spaceships were waiting for the astronauts to land to see if they landed okay. He said that they landed and then the astronauts got out, did their thing, and that the ships flew away. And I thought that was really interesting because I hear negativity surrounding that, but he had a whole different spin. And you know what was also interesting is that there were a couple of missions in the past, Apollo 13 and Apollo 15 or 17. I'm sorry, I get them a little confused. But two of them, one of them for sure had an account where, I'm sorry, it was Apollo 10 because it was the dress rehearsal for Apollo 11. These guys were supposed to, Apollo 10 had to get as close to the moon as they could without landing men. And as they were on their way down in that lunar module, you see the lunar module was a smaller craft that left the big one. The command module stayed in orbit. And then the two for each mission that will walk on the moon were in a smaller lunar module, the ones that people say look like tinfoil and all this stuff. But, you know, that's another story, right? So they came as close as they could, and then they got stuck, all right? They got stuck in space above the moon's ground. I don't remember how close it was, but close enough that they couldn't get back, and it was a problem. They're radioing mission control, and they're saying, you know, we don't know what to do. They're, you know, in touch with the guy on the command module, and he can't help them. But then one of the astronauts noticed a UFO fly past the window. And as it did so, the equipment started to work inside. All right. And then they were able to, what they call, get a lock, something in there. I don't know what, you know, I'm not a scientist, so I can't explain the, you know, how it all worked, but they got their lock, and they told mission control, or also called ground control, that, you know, everything's working, and the guys down below said, proceed with the mission. Now, I'm tying that into Maurice Chatelain, I think his name was, not Ewing, Chatelain, who was saying in his book that it looked like those beings inside of the craft on the moon were watching to see if they would make it okay. We have an account, because if you go back to Apollo 10, when they got home, the astronauts said that they thought that they were helped, but they covered that up. They didn't want the guys to talk about that at the press conference.
I was just going to ask you real quick, if you've seen the demeanor on their faces when they are walking out to the you know, the table and the chairs,
the press conference. Yeah, right after.
We've played that over and over again, and we were like, wow, when they get off that ship, something was said and they are not happy about it, and they look, one of them looks scared, you know.
They didn't look happy at all.
Not at all.
You know,
so I was referring to the Apollo 10 astronauts, but you are right about the Apollo 11 astronauts as well. They looked depressed. They looked upset.
Yes.
And some people have interpreted that, you know, for the naysayers about the Apollo missions, they say, oh, they know they didn't go up, and, you know, they're in front of the cameras and they have to tell a lie. But it very well could be that they know something, they saw something, and that is a very, very difficult thing for them not to talk about and to live with.
Absolutely.
A couple of questions, comments in the audience that I'll bring up real fast. Anthony asked, then what about the story? Also, there was a story of a rich man that used his money to head to the moon back in 1970. Have you heard those stories?
No, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Anthony. I don't know about Russia. Certainly don't know about the rich man. I don't know, Anthony. You know, I mean, it took a lot of money to get a Saturn V to the moon. He had to be really rich. I mean, did he make it back? I don't know about that one. Billions of dollars to get that thing out there. Okay.
And those days,
you have to see it when it goes up. Did someone see that, man? So I really don't know. As far as Russia, you know, I've heard that the Germans had a base. I haven't heard anything about Russia. but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right. Right.
There's a
True.
lot of rumor.
There's rumor and even like lore and the Nazis on the moon and things of that nature.
Yeah.
I don't know that happened either, but it certainly is interesting, and the moon is certainly interesting. Bob says, my uncle was in the Air Force when it was called the Armed Air Force and was a senior master sergeant stationed in Alaska. Forgets what base. Anyway, he saw a UFO-shaped craft, saucer shape that was ours, that the military was testing.
I think we've seen that pictures, but they didn't come off the ground. But I believe that. That's so us, the government.
It does seem like they might be covering some things up.
Absolutely.
You
What
know,
is-
that comment kind of just brings us right up today to what's going on with the whole disclosure movement. You know, I mean, and what happened with Congress. So basically, they're saying that for 47 years, things have been covered up. I recently heard in the news they've changed it to 80. But if you ask me, things have been going on since the beginning of history. That's what my second book I just wrote about. So yeah, I don't doubt that, you know, there was some ships that they saw up there. I mean, there's a lot of talk about crashed spaceships being in the technology being reverse engineered. So maybe that's what he saw, that person. Who knows?
Yeah. One of the early colonists, you know, they saw from a canoe, I guess it was a boat they were rowing in the Muddy River, which is off the Charles River in Boston, just south of Boston. They saw what they described as a flaming pig in the sky, and this is documented by the governor at the time of the Mass Bay colonies, Governor Winthrop. That's right. And they were going down river, going with the tide, and they lost time. Right, they had a time loss experience and ended up the river from where they were and couldn't explain what had happened, other than they saw this what they described as a flaming pig or a boar in the sky, which because they never saw UFO movies or anything, right? What would they call it?
UFOs.
What would they call it? That's absolutely right. No, I just wrote a book. It's due out December 15th, and it's Earth's galactic history and its extraterrestrial connection. It is a companion book to the Last Moon book, and I tell you, I have some interesting stuff in there. I mean, some of these UFOs go back to the beginning. You know, let's say the Romans and the Greeks didn't know what to call them either. They would see things in the sky. They called them flying shields.
Yes.
You know that flying shields. They didn't know what to say. Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus saw UFOs and USOs, and oh my goodness, Hamilton saw one of his. I'm talking about the politician Hamilton, the show Hamilton. That guy, he saw one of his cows being abducted, and he didn't know what to call it. Oh, I'm not kidding. He didn't know what to call it. He had a farm. He had a farmer, whatever, a plantation. I don't know what it was, but it was he owned animals, and he watched it one night, and he and one of his a man who was working for him ran after it, and it just took it up and out.
Wow.
Yeah, right. It's almost like a stereotype now, but that stuff happens. Like you mentioned Linda Moulton Howe earlier, who documented cattle mutilations as a journalist
70s,
in the late 70s, I believe. Great stuff. She did some amazing work. We like Earth Files and the Y Files and any kind of X Files.
It's hard to keep up with it all.
A lot of files out there. I want to get our hands on.
Dead Files.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. Dead Files.
No, it's the D Files or something like that.
So that's really interesting. You also write about extraterrestrials themselves, as you just mentioned. You have the book coming out. What have you learned about them?
There's a lot of them. Okay, they're not just gray aliens. There's a lot of them, and they've been around for a long time. And the reasons that they haven't shown themselves, I believe, I mean, it's just my theory, is because we just were not ready. I believe that the galaxy is full of life, the universe is full of life. And I think that what is happening on Earth today with the disclosure and all of this, I call it growing pains. I would think that if there were, since I believe there are civilizations out there, that they all started somewhere. And there may have been many like ours that had to come to the realization that we're not alone in the universe. We're not the only ones. And believe me, I can see where there may have been people, beings on other worlds that may not have been open to the idea, like so many here aren't. Eventually it's all gonna, I think, come out, and it'll all flatten out, and we'll get on with life. We'll learn that there are others out there with, civilizations that are similar to us, because most of the beings in that I've heard of are humanoid. Now, granted, there's going to be a lot of beings out there that are not, but in our galaxy, from people who have been writing about them, seen them, contacted them, there's all different kinds that appear to be humanoid. Now, it gets very complicated and very deep because, in my book, I talk about how it's a possibility that there was what we could call a planet seeders that seeded life in the galaxy, and we kind of took, and some didn't, but they all came out kind of similar.
Like an intentional panspermia.
Yes.
Yes, panspermia. That's the word. So that could be why there's so many humanoid. That's what I've learned, and they're around. There are some out there that are helpful. There are some out there that are not, like in Star Wars. They're here, I believe, on different assignments, different missions, different reasons, but it's not just one group. And I really wish that people would stop just publishing that one group, because that's how people envision aliens now. They're all gray aliens. They're not.
No. E.T. Right.
All
Well,
right.
there's something to that, for sure. Do you think it's a thing of where the reptilians are kind of the bad ones and don't care for mankind? The lizard people.
Lizard people.
Yeah.
I saw you roll your eyes.
They're out there. They're out there. They're the the words that I have been I recently came across from them is abomination. They are an abomination. One video was talking about their history, and then another video called them the bad guys. There's going to be bad guys out there. Okay.
Sure. Dark and light.
Yep, dark and light. We live in a world, a universe of dark and light. What's really interesting is that there have been scientists that said they are seeing explosions way out in deep space, and they can't figure out what those explosions are, except they said maybe someone's out there having a war. It looks like there's a war going on in deep space. They can't understand it. And there you go, the good and the bad. And there may be a war, not those particular people, but an invisible war for the Earth. The Earth is very valuable. It has a lot of life. We have accounts of people seeing water being taken from the Earth. Eyewitnesses. And it's full of resources. And of course, we know about the animals being taken. So there seems to be a lot going on.
Yeah, the surgical precision in which they make some of the cuts, say these cows, and there's other animals too, and even people, which isn't talked about too often.
Yes.
People. But it happens. It is amazing, and it's hard to discount that. The laser faced cows of Linda Moulton Howe. It's very interesting. I mean, something's going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. I don't know if it's still going on or not. I haven't heard a lot about cattle mutilations lately. So it would be interesting to know if that's still a thing that's happening a lot. I don't know.
I've heard some stories in the last couple of years, but you're right. With all the attention that UAPs, as we call them now, are getting in the military and disclosure, David Grush and such, and that MH370 flight.
Oh,
We
yeah.
played a little of that video at the front of our show, but I guess that's been debunked. You know, it comes off a little silly now, but it does look pretty good. You would think like, you know, the cows would be at the center of attention, right?
Yeah. Living beings. Yes, we just saw that.
Bob mentioned Skinwalker Ranch. You know, I mean, it is a show. Our buddy Nathaniel Gillis, he knows a thing or two about the aliens out there.
Yes, he does.
And lizard people. What's going on?
Well, you know, there's a lot going on, and you're not going to hear it in the mainstream news. Okay. They're trying to get it in the mainstream news. I just posted on Facebook about what's his name, Cuomo, Cuomo, the journalist
on News Nation.
News Nation.
Thank you. He's all over this thing, you know. So thank goodness, you know, we have people like that. But I think he is on a alternative news channel now. But just the fact that it's Chris Cuomo talking about it, you know, is getting attention. And the other, Tucker Carlson, is that his name? He's all over this. And so, you know, slowly mainstream people are beginning to talk about it. But, you know, sometimes when I'm watching television and I've just, you know, learned about some UFO, like the going on in Peru. I don't know if you've heard about what's going on. You don't see that in the mainstream news, and you know it's real. You know it's there.
You guys, so if you didn't see the beginning of the show, anybody, we had pelicatas in the video
as well. Some supposed video may have also been debunked, but you know everything gets debunked. But there's some percentage of truth in all of this.
The Peru people thing, the
Well,
Peru sightings.
The particular video, it's
okay.
With his face lasered off.
His face is gone, and apparently, I think we did some more research. It was somebody who had fallen in the river some years before.
Yeah, and they couldn't.
And her face got eaten by the piranha. Or
yeah, I saw that video. I saw it, and the weird thing about that is the body was intact.
That's what they were saying. He fell.
His face was in the river.
Died on his face in the water.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
but maybe it's
not
true.
I
mean I wasn't there. I don't know. Something's going on down there.
Something's going on, and goodness knows what if it comes here, right?
Exactly.
Because that's something to think about. There was a young guy who went down there. He took a team to investigate it, and I can't remember his name now. But he did a really good investigation, and it looks like that is a legitimate sighting. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of them. That's just one, but you're not going to hear them in the mainstream news. Anyway, now the question is, where are they coming from? Some of these extraterrestrials, the negative ones. And where are all of these ships coming from? The question is, are some of them coming from the moon? Now, I have seen pictures that look like fleets of spaceships or fleets of ships leaving the moon. And I wonder, where are they going? Are they coming to Earth? Are they going out around the solar system? But are they coming to Earth? You know, that's where they're going. And you can see in some, you know, we've got a lot of cameras now, a lot of good technology. People are getting good pictures of UFOs flying around the moon. And we can see lights on the surface of the moon. Now, we know that they have found constructions and structures on the moon. Some of them are from the ancient, look like they are ancient, and they were blown apart in a war. The lunar orbiter took pictures of those, and those became very famous in the 70s. But there are also structures up there that look more modern. I mean, they are not blown to pieces, that look like there's someone up there using those things. And also on the craters, you can see lights around the craters that look like, you know, there's a parking lot. You won't find that in the mainstream news, you know.
No.
So something going on. Now, before we had any idea about space flight or any kind of flight, when the telescope was created and all of these astronomers of old were documenting what they were seeing on the moon. They saw lights moving across the surface. They saw lights in the skies of the moon. Those were UFOs. They saw what looked like, and one guy saw what looked like either animals or insects in a flock going across the surface of the moon. And he was a prominent guy too. And he's in that little book I told you about. No, he's in my book, not in that book. And anyway, so these astronomers documented how long, for an hour or two, they might see 3 red objects. I'm just throwing this out there. In geometric forms going across the surface. They saw different lights in craters. They saw all kinds of stuff going on up there, but they didn't have the words for what they were, but they were convinced that someone was living on the moon. And it wasn't until modern times where our scientists said, oh, the moon is too hot and then it's too cold. Nobody can survive in those temperatures. But then they never explained all of that activity that had been seen on the moon. And that was now in the little book. Someone was doing it. So someone was living there. And I feel like because I think humanity has been so arrogant in the way we look, they have looked at themselves, being the center of the universe, that it is hard for them to imagine that there may be beings or civilizations that are millions to billions of years older than humanity, that have already gone into space, gone to the moon, and have that technology. We hear the scientists saying, because I wonder if they get to the moon and here through wormholes and portals and stargates, but then you have the scientists saying, there's no way there can't be, beings traveling the universe because they can't get here. It's too far. Well, if they're an old civilization that have improved their technology, of course they may have found ways to quickly travel the universe. We see it ourselves in our science fiction. And how many times has science fiction come true?
That's right. Become real.
In our own lifetimes, we've watched science fiction go from that fiction to absolute reality. The Enterprise, they had those the flip phone. They had the first flip phone, right?
Clamshell.
So, yeah. I mean, they truly did. All kinds of things, and science keeps changing the explanations. The dinosaurs are much different than they were when I was a kid. None of them had feathers, right? The T-Rex had feathers. Along with some of the other ones.
We should make a monolith here on Earth that says Gen X.
As a matter of fact, I had a book, a big,
we live in an awesome
a learning book, and it had a picture of the Earth on it with the moon jettisoning out of the Atlantic Ocean, because that was the running theory then, that the moon came from the Earth, was like a chunk of Earth that had just separated and had this big fireball, and that was supposed to be the moon. That's what people thought, we were taught. Now they don't think that at all, and it's probably something else than what they say it is.
It's all theorized.
We don't have the answers. Yeah, we don't have the answers to many, many things, guys. It's time to expand, open our minds, think out of the box, imagine the impossible, because that's pretty much where we are, I think. We're not going to get answers from the powers that be if they want to keep us down. Yeah. I like Star Trek. Star Trek is one of my favorite things in the world, And Gene Roddenberry was, ahead of his time. He was said to have been sitting in on channeling sessions, right? So he was said to have been sitting in on channeling sessions. Sorry?
While writing the script of Star Trek?
Before channeling sessions with a woman and a few others who she said she was channeling. I think it was the Galactic Federation or someone, and the idea is that the beings that she was channeling said they were in a ship in Earth's vicinity. They were from different worlds, and they worked together and they traveled the universe. And they were, here to help, and they were here to give information. They're here to give warnings and things like this. So the idea is that Gene Roddenberry, from sitting in on those sessions, created Star Trek. And I don't know how much information he got from them, but I've heard that a lot of the early scripts, like the show in the 60s, and I don't know, maybe Next Generation, were from things that he had heard, during those sessions.
Wow,
And that
I didn't
I'm
realize.
sorry, and that's one of the ways that extraterrestrials are trying to educate us, is through science fiction.
Oh,
Wow.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's yeah. I like that.
Interesting.
That's an interesting thought for sure. And channeling, very interesting. We were on our friend Greg Costa's show when Spirits Connect last night doing Estes method. If you're familiar with that, where you kind of do a little bit of sensory deprivation and listen to like what we call a ghost box, a spirit box,
White noise.
white
Anything.
noise, and
Binary.
people around you ask questions and you try to answer them. And
Channel.
we were doing that with Emmy PDX, and that was a lot of
Paranormal.
fun. And that's sort of like channeling a little bit. The Seth Speaks books were really interesting, right? I think there's a whole series of those that were completely channeled. And
Yeah.
you may go into aliens and them as well. I'm not sure. I think I read the first one when I was a kid.
I haven't read them.
It's been a while for myself, but it's fascinating. Do you think the psychic abilities is something that people seem to walk away from abductions from? They enhance psychic abilities. They call it contact modalities. Have you heard of this? And do you think that's valid?
Yeah, I don't really know much about that, to be honest. But I I've experienced a lot of stuff in my life, and I'm really open to when people say this happened to them, why not? Why not?
You can't be judgmental. That's for sure.
It's
I
not
know.
just that, near-death experiences. Sometimes
Sure.
people come back with stronger
That's
ability.
right.
Absolutely.
That's right. They might have better psychic abilities, or
when they come back.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have to be able to astral project. We've talked to NDEs that have told us that as well on this show. Definitely a fascinating area of research. How long did you say you've been researching this stuff?
Oh my gosh. It's well over 30 years. It's well over 30 years. And I did forget to mention something that happened to me when I was 14. When I was 14, I was a bullied kid. I tried to, my household was dysfunctional, and I was one of those kids that tried to commit suicide, right? So,
Sorry.
yeah, at that time, I saw someone, and he came to me, and he was in a long white robe, and he was holding out his hand as if he was saying, to come. And I didn't really know much about what I now call angels at that time. Anyway, so there was what looked like a swirling cloud, and it dissipated, and there he stood, and he looked very concerned, very upset, and was beckoning me to come, and I didn't reach out for him. I just thought, oh wow, this is what happens, when you take a whole bunch of pills. But later, I read about a lady who had an experience with a extraterrestrial person, and she said this person came to her, and there was a swirling cloud, and it dissipated, and he was there, and I thought, wow, that sounds a lot like what I went through. And I think that was a near-death experience, but I also think that it was someone there that knew me and to help. And I feel like, talking about the psychic things, I feel like I have what I call my star guides around, because I feel like I get downloads of information. And I wonder if that has a connection to that time where I saw that person appear to me. Yeah.
Some people do, and we're very sorry to hear that, but we've had others on our show who have said the same thing. Basically, that's when they see
colors that they can't explain,
and you feel the warmth, and you feel or you see this person, and it's a lot.
Yeah. No, we think that's very valid.
Yes.
And does occur.
I finally got on the computer.
I like to think of us as like fish in a fish tank. Like you wonder how many senses the fish has, right?
Yeah.
And they judge everything just like we do by those 5 senses for the most part, unless you want to count a 6th sense. That's like all we got. And if we can't prove it through our senses, then it can't be true. And we're so logic driven and not able to see through the kind of the bigger picture of like there might be more to this reality, this existence. There could be creatures that have a whole set of senses and don't even use eyeballs and touch things like we do and think that's how they perceive their reality. And when they intermingle, of course crazy things can happen. Physics can go out the window. It's the same thing with discarnate, and so a lot of our experiences sound completely wackadoodle to tell to the layperson. But if you've been around this stuff, this kind of phenomena, there's a good chance you have a story to share. So we think it's wonderful that you're doing that and documenting things.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
The same to you both.
Do you have a place where people can find your books and yourself?
Okay, guys. The book is on Amazon. Or you can go to Adventures Unlimited Press. That's who it's published by. You can go and or if you Google it, it'll pop up everywhere. But I'd suggest Amazon. Let's see. I am on Facebook, and under Constance Victoria Briggs, I have a page under my name. And I am I'm on Instagram and TikTok, but I'm just really learning to work it out and use it. So bear with me. I'm trying to get it up and going. I know Facebook is not old fashioned for the young people, but, but I can be down there, and the other ones too. I'm trying to get going, guys.
George asks, how many books have you written? I notice there's quite a few out here on Amazon right now. I see 1, 2, 3, 5. So yeah, lots of books. Earth's galactic history. I'd like to dig into that. The unseen world. You mentioned deathbed visions, mediums, shadow people as well. Do you think there's something to shadow people that is not the same as a discarnate spirit?
I just have a small amount of information in that book. This book was written quite a while back, but as far as what it is, I don't think that they're discarnate spirits. I think that they may be a kind of ET, or my other theory is that they are someone that is in a different dimension, and that's how we're seeing them. I think the dimensions sometimes cross over. I could be wrong. I've seen one, and it was so fast. It was like it came out of nowhere and went into nowhere. And that's why I think maybe sometimes the dimensions are crossing over. Maybe what we're seeing when we see shadow people is like looking in a foggy mirror. Okay, we can't really see their image as to what they really are. That's my theory, but I know it's not that great a theory. That's all I got for shadow people.
Other people have said the same thing that you're saying. So
really?
Well, the interdimensional, same thing with the cryptids.
Right.
Can't get anything but a fuzzy picture of that Bigfoot, or they debunk it.
The Bigfoot pictures are becoming better. I've seen a whole bunch of stuff that they're much clearer than they used to be. If you ask me, you can tell they're there. There's definitely something there that looks like Bigfoot in a whole bunch of pictures. And I don't know. Maybe they're interdimensional. I don't know, but maybe they are coming from below ground too. If there's one thing I learned from writing this last book, is that the Earth has a whole lot of tunnels. And I believe that there is something about, the hollow earth story. I do believe there are beings inside of the earth. And they could be coming from there. They could be interdimensional. Some people have said that they've seen UFOs, in their presence. I don't know, but, that's just a theory, because there's a lot of tunnels and there are a lot of openings to those tunnels throughout the earth, and people do not know it. They don't know it. And some of the cryptids, I also think, are in the caves and are possibly in the earth. I'm specifically interested in the pale crawlers. I'm not a big cryptid researcher, but that one just really threw me when I first learned about them.
What is it?
Pale crawlers.
Pale crawlers.
Oh,
pale,
one on 4 legs, like it's like a human, and
they
it's
are on 4 legs, and people are
the shit
seeing
out of
them.
I don't
What?
like them. They scare the heck out of me, and yes, I snore. But
Apparently,
yeah,
they're pretty fragile. They I don't think that I think you could harm them before they can harm you. They seem to be pretty fragile creatures. I have to be honest. But I've seen these things in videos in different parts of the country where one person said, "Oh, I caught a UFO. I caught an alien on camera, and he was outside filming this thing. This thing was on his rooftop, and I don't think it was a hoax." And he was filming this thing, and he was so sincere, and I was like, no, it looks like a pale crawler. That looks like the exact same thing that was in a few states over, and people have seen these things now I don't want to scare people, but one reported them in a parking garage. One reported them going up a wall in Louisiana.
good.
They're all over the place. I don't think people are making up all these stories,
There's certainly something to this.
There's something to it. There's something to it. I was listening.
I'm sorry. Their own individuality. So their own individual things that they see.
It's like the shimmering people, right? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about this kind of shimmering type entity, and that's sort of like the predator and the predator suit. And we had an experience like that ourselves where we saw that. I think we have some video. In a very tall tree in a very haunted location, and it was knocking through like the branches in the tree.
And then you hear
it was just like a shimmer, and then all these acorns were just dropping left and right it from the tree. It was in the fall. They're dropping anyways, but it would a whole bunch of them
sounded
drop.
Human size, and then when you look at it, and that's what it looked like, predator.
But other people have seen that too,
right?
You know what that might be? It's like they don't reflect light the same way we do, so they come off as a sort of shimmer or something.
Yeah, I've read about them just recently. I learned about them. I don't know what they are. They could be ETs. I really believe there's a lot. Okay, there are two things going on. I think that there are ETs visiting Earth, and I also think that the Earth has more creatures, inhabitants here than we realize. You see, we have so many cameras now, and we have such a easy way to communicate the world over with the internet and with social media, that people are seeing things and reporting them where they couldn't do it before. The Native Americans talked about this stuff all the time in the past history. All right. They talked about predator type creatures and things that they saw out there. Okay. But we have that handed down to us as stories. They didn't have cell phones where they could take a picture like we're seeing pictures today. And believe me, everybody isn't creating with what is it, CGI or whatever, or AIs. There are a lot of authentic people, pictures from people sharing what they've seen. So things are coming together now because of the technology. Also, we may be attracting beings, that are coming here for whatever reason because of our technology, and there are more coming. But there are also, I think that there are beings from Earth that we cannot see. I've been hearing stories since I was young about I don't know what a word, closest word would be, for example, would be a troll. One young girl years ago told a story to my friend about seeing a little guy with long nails. And he kind of appeared and disappeared. And, we have that in our nursery rhymes and things. Some of those creatures or beings may be real. I had a girlfriend who saw a fairy. Not a fairy, not the fairy, a brownie. And she was as sane as you All three of us. She saw
Yeah.
a brownie. She woke up from a nap and she said there was this little person about this big, and he ran across the bed and through the window a screen.
Oh, we believe you.
She didn't make that up.
Yeah.
So I
and
Yeah.
think there's other
People
things
have been seeing
too.
fairies for thousands of years. You know, and it's just different cultures too, totally unrelated cultures,
Mhm.
seeing the same kind of phenomena, whether it's UFOs or fairies, like, you know, that
Mhm.
it goes way back as long as we've been recording stuff, you know. So yeah, there's something to it.
Yeah.
We think so.
We know that you have to go. So thank you again for being with us. And
Thank you.
could you please come back? Because I have a lot of questions still.
You know, I would love to come back and walk you just through the moon stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, I
Yeah,
would love
we
to
jumped around a
tell
little
you
bit.
Right.
Sorry.
the moon story. There's so many more things to talk about with the Apollo missions, for example, things the astronauts encountered. It wasn't just the Apollo 11 astronauts. There were other things. Um, there's a whole history of the moon to look at. And yeah, I would love to come back and get into some of that stuff. Maybe I can make a list of topics and send it to you, and you can tell me which ones you like.
Absolutely.
Sounds
That
great.
would be
Well,
better.
we
Yeah.
just want to hear whatever you want
Yeah.
to talk about. We love the moon. We think it's mysterious. We know a little bit about the stories, and we wanted to hear your side of it and your take and what your research has shown.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we appreciate you coming on. We're getting ready to. What are we doing?
I think
We don't know.
Greg's show tomorrow night.
Oh yeah. We're going to be on the Shadow Hour with Greg. Speaking of Greg, so 2 nights with Greg Cost this week,
Yes.
Mr. Cost, and we're just going to be talking about some of our plans coming up and projects and such. So tune into the Shadow Hour on Supernatural Inc.
Shaman Sundays.
and Shaman Sundays. So thank you so much, Constance.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
That's all the time we have for tonight, guys. We will see you next Thursday, if not sooner, and tomorrow night.
Yes.
Shadow Hour.
Good night.
Have a great night. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.